Yeah, I feel like I was always the same as you when I was just new in school. Where it's like I've always just had lofty ideas from one thing to the next. Always I happen to fall into the moving industry where I kind of use like my like skills to be creative. But it's the same as you, where I feel like I was doing something here, I was doing some artistic shit here, doing some fashion shit here, then doing stuff here, to where it's like, yeah, I just need to focus on one thing, and then I can go to the next. You know?
Exactly. Like, honestly, like, we're just going to roll into this podcast because we've started perfectly. And so, everybody, this is the Easy Spotlight podcast. Today, our guest is Mr. Ryan King. Brother, how you doing today?
Good. How about yourself?
I'm doing good, man. So as you can see, we're already in this conversation. We're already talking creativity, lofty goals, and you specifically. So just a quick intro for everyone else. Born in Wilmington, North Carolina, moved to Charlotte to go to college and played soccer at Queen's University with myself, and then also moved on. Now living in the Triangle area and is the owner of Dogwood Moving company after spending some time in Charlotte, North Carolina, and falling into like moving and furniture space, a space that I wouldn't have initially thought this is where Ryan King is going to end up. But I kind of want to take it back and go to the start
Yeah.
and like give us a bit of background of you and how you initially fall into moving and the moving industry.
Yeah, absolutely. So first, just I'm assuming just like you is I only focused on soccer and my whole personality was soccer. The only reason I went to college was because of soccer, and that's all I could think about. It wasn't until about probably sophomore or junior year where I'm like, am I going to be this athlete that just holds on to it forever? And then I started making shifts. Moving definitely was not something I ever planned on doing. I was always in creative ideas. I was always like, I'm never going to work in an office. The same stuff that a lot of guys say in college. And then it wasn't until I left Queens junior year to go to UNC Charlotte, stopped playing soccer, that I was like, all right, I guess I need to get a job. So at this point, I was pretty big into fitness and I thought I'd become a personal trainer or something like that. So I applied to a job at a gym. And from there, the owner of a moving company in Charlotte called Hornet Moving saw my resume and he was like, hey, do you want to come work here? And I was like, sure, why not? It's good money. So I started working with him while I was going to UNC Charlotte, never thinking that would turn into anything necessarily. But I started making pretty good money. And he started trying to be like, do you want to go in the office and be the GM? I was like, no, I just want to do what I love. And I'm going to be a personal trainer. I don't want to be in the industry. About like a month or two, I started reaching a point where he would text me and say, can you work tomorrow? Can you work tomorrow? I had class at this point. So it was make money or go to class. It reached a point where I stopped going to class. And it was like 2 months where I didn't go to class. And I remember my mom calling me. She's like, I don't believe you're going to class, are you? And I was like, I'm not. So she's like, all right, if you're dropping out, it's all on you. And I was like, okay. So I made the commitment. After conversations with him, I was like, I'm all in. And I realized not to chase necessarily your passion. In a perfect world, you can. So like if I could have played professional soccer, perfect, or something in the arts. But I started realizing finding a career that utilizes your skills and what you're good at brings you just as much happiness, if not more success, than just chasing something that you're interested in. And that's kind of what I learned slowly, allowed me to be creative, which I never thought you can be creative in business because I was all about like creative in the arts in school. And then I realized business is just as creative when it comes to creating systems, plans of actions, dealing with people. And then from there, I had the opportunity after being at that company as the GM for 4 years. I grew it from one truck to 17, multi-million-dollar company. I had the opportunity to open one in Raleigh. And from there, I just went forward with it and did it.
That's I love that, and there's so many parallels in just the thinking at the start. So like, I want to kind of go back there first and work up. So being creative in school, being really focused in soccer, and that being your driving force at that time in college. Did you think I'm always going to do something for myself? I know you kind of mentioned it, but did you have any idea of what you wanted to do? Because so many people get caught up in like, there's people who know what they want to do from the minute they're born. I'm going to be this and I'm going to commit myself to that. Like, I'm a person who beyond football had no clue. I'm still trying to figure that out. So where was that for you?
Yeah, I definitely, besides the soccer dream, had no idea what I want to do. But looking back at my life, I was always just doing things. Like, I was terrible at school. Like, if you knew me in school, I was not good. But I would read on my own and I enjoyed learning. And I would always do like videos with my friends or some type of like outside thing that was very entrepreneurial in that sense, and trying to figure out okay, I don't want to do class, but I'm down to spend 10 hours making a video on something or something like that. So it kind of, looking back, seems like I was always for something of owning my own company because I had the drive to do things on my own accord, whether it was even just fitness, where like sometimes guys wanted to go out partying. I'd rather go to the gym or rather go read. I wouldn't want to do my homework, but I'd be down to do something like that. So it's kind of like the fact that I was always willing to learn and do things on my own and constantly make myself better led me into a field where I felt comfortable doing something on my own.
That's huge. I think there's a lot in there that like is resonated with me instantly because I don't think I would have gone to college at all if it wasn't for football. Like, there's nothing in university that attracts me, and even to this day, I'm like, I have a business degree, but did I feel like I learned anything from a business degree more so than just life experience and what I've learned on my own? Probably not. You know, and so you yourself kind of going into this and then landing in, say, furniture and moving, was there any friction at the start just because it's moving and it's furniture and it's maybe not as creative? I know you found creative in business, but like, I'm not going to be in this moving space. Maybe was there any stigma attached to that for you personally, or how did that work?
That's a great question. So at first, I come from very humble beginnings, so I personally never had a little bit of maybe a weight where someone, as the people went to Queen, some of them from very wealthy families, would probably not do a job that they felt like was beneath them. So I don't think I've ever had that personally. I just, like, my parents are very working class, so making money is just making money at that time. So I didn't have a friction in that sense. And then at the point of when I started doing the job, there's something where you're directly working with a person moving, and moving is listed in the top three most stressful events for a person. It's death, taxes, and moving. And I would do such a good job that these people would love me, be so nice, tip me very well, and I could just kind of feel how much this meant to them. So that kind of helped with that friction there. I love fitness, and at that point, I was just like, "Give me heavy things, I'm gonna lift them." So like part of that was like an initial aspect to it as well. And then I'm not going to lie, the money side of it. So like in school, you do homework, you don't really get anything out of it except a grade. My hard work was translating into money. And once I got into adult life and started making money, my parents weren't necessarily financially literate. But once I started making money, I was like, I'm going to be good at this. And I started just diving deep into teaching myself, watch hours, hundreds of hours of YouTube videos, teaching myself finances. So I started like saving money. So like the friction that you're talking about, I almost never thought. I just got caught into it and just started going hard once I had an opportunity. It was almost like my whole life I was waiting for an opportunity, and I found one, and I was like, I'm not letting this go. I'm putting everything in on this.
Right, and you're someone who realised the opportunity as well, because I think that is a big thing at Queens and probably private schools in general. Like in America, for people listening from England, it's hard to understand what like these private kind of schools are like. One, because the numbers that you have to go if you're not on scholarship are just mind-boggling. So people who are there and are not on scholarship, how can you pay $50,000 for education? It's like it's not even, it doesn't even comprehend that someone would put that money forth,
Yeah.
right? But so you notice that opportunity. You're working at Hornet Moving. You're starting on the ground. You're moving. They're showing success, and you're moving up to general manager and beyond. So, at what point are you starting to think about your own business? Did that come from someone in their business, or are you like, I could do this myself?
So basically, throughout the years, I have a good relationship. He's a partner with me in my company as well now. Blake, who owns Hornet Moving. It reached a point where I was the first one in the office running everything by myself. He was very hands off. It was just like, here it is, go for it. And so at this point, I'm 23, 24, just learning things, making mistakes left and right, which I just always took notes and wanted to be better. Throughout the 4 years, we brought on, Drew Walsh, Eric Liebel, Dan. So now I'm working with my best friends in the office, which was a cool experience. And we were crushing goals. But over year one, we went to make 1 million. Year two, 1.5 million, then 2.5 million, and 2.9. I saw growth slowly kind of stop. I was extremely happy. And at this point, I was like, do I save for a house? Do I want to invest in real estate? But then someone in our network of companies was like, I want the Raleigh market, and asked Blake, because he has the North Carolina market, if that he could have that. He mentioned it to me at, I was 25 or 24 at the time. And he's like, do any of you guys want it? And then I called him and I said, I'm very happy here. I want more in the sense of, are we going to open more of these? Are we going to keep doing? I'm very hungry. And he said, maybe, but I want to bet your future on it. If you open one, you'll get it. You'll be giving yourself a raise. And then I was like, give me a day to think about it. I went home, spoke to my girlfriend, who's now my wife, and I said, do you want to move? Are you okay with picking up your life for me to do this? And I was kind of expecting her to be like, no, I'm good. She was like, yeah, let's do it. I believe in you. I was like, oh shit, we're actually doing this. And then the next day I was like, I'm in. And then I started planning for like 8 months out and then went full speed in.
And so, what are your thoughts then? Because you've not spent much time in Raleigh and the Triangle area. Then you know the business from a Charlotte level in ground up. Just your initial, you said you've got 8 months there to plan, but what are the initial thoughts that are going through your mind at that time when you've committed to
So
open this?
at this point, I'm full in. It's like, this is where my creative juices that like I had bits of at Hornet, but it really kicked in. So it was like, first thing is logo. What's the name? So I started going on Fiverr, creating all these logos with different names potentially to kind of decide what I wanted to go, what idea I want to go, what type of branding, what type of artistic direction, what's different from my competition. So my first like 2 months was figuring that out, which was super exciting. From there, it is visiting Raleigh. Where do I want to move? I have no idea what area is good. So first I start going to look at downtown. I'm like, that's not it. And then I have to figure out what's the nice area. So I start looking up coffee shops and I'm like, usually buy a good coffee shop. It's a good area over there. So me and my wife started visiting a few times and then we locked in a place. And then from there, I was getting the website built, which is another fun creative aspect, which is a whole separate story to the guy who helped make my website. We're now also going to launch a company to create websites for service industries and moving companies as well. That's something we're working on now because now they've made two of mine because I own Dogwood, I own Brightleaf Moving, and I'm launching Dogwood Moving as well. So that just started like last month and it's a soft start. But at this point, it's just getting all the basics down, figuring out the LLC stuff, figuring out bank accounts, figuring out all the back end stuff where I experienced the whole entirety of the moving industry, but not the business owner side. So I'm getting my feet wet kind of with that side of it. And then I move there and I'm just like, oh, I'm in this. And then I have to hustle to get work at that point.
So there's a firstly a creativity, but secondly there's just from everything you seem to do and as the story progresses, there's like just a work rate and a humility to kind of everything you do, probably from your upbringing and kind of knowing that like I know I can do this. I'm just going to put myself out there. I'm gonna allow myself to make mistakes.
Mm-hmm.
And you seem to, from how you're speaking, let things kind of roll off. But were there any things at that time that just hit you and just like I was not expecting this challenge, or does that go back to your kind of mentality in that any challenge is just a learning experience and you're growing from that?
So looking back, I'm trying to think of there's challenges that were faced, but I will say personally, like with all the books behind me before this, I was always big into like philosophy, self-development. I feel like I've had a lot of tough life experiences prior that kind of hardened me. I kind of live by anytime a new challenge comes, I kind of just say good. It's a chance for me to prove myself. And I still live with that to this day. So I don't typically get overwhelmed to where can't move when I have tough situations. I kind of lock in and dial in. And the more and more, I actually look back to when I started the company year one, when I had no life, working 12 hours every single day, the amount of momentum I had. And sometimes I miss it where I'd be working like crazy, coming home, doing payroll, going on a job, coming back, talking to customers, hanging out with my wife, going to the gym. And I just was in this momentum wave and I felt unstoppable, where sometimes I only have 2 hours of work to do a day and I just lack the motivation that I used to once have. So I have to keep pushing myself out. But to answer your question, there was stuff year one that was just, for example, like when I first hired, I didn't have consistent work. So then I have to hire people, but it's hard for me to give them work because I don't have consistent. So it was the balance of just like people not showing up or not having enough people or doing two jobs that went to 1 o'clock in the morning back to back and going on 4 hours of sleep of being like, I have to do it. I have no option. And just like kind of figuring it out as I went there.
So it's everything you're saying is like just clicking things off in my brain because you've got this drive and it's the way about you saying like when you're busy and there's a lot going on, that's when you thrive the most, as opposed to like the other time. For me, it's exact same thing. If I'm got too much time and just the whole day going on, it's almost as if I don't know, I'm paused. My brain just doesn't fire on all cylinders. But when you're going and you've got all that going, and I love how you talk about philosophy and self development. So let's kind of move into the leadership of it, right?
Yeah.
You've got this company. From what I read in things, it may be bigger, but you've got about 60 plus employees, part
Yep.
time, full time, that going. It's a big operation now from where you started.
Yes.
And so I want to first start. This business at all levels because you started at the ground and you've grown up. How does that influence your leadership? And second, what is your philosophy to leadership?
Yes. So multiple, you got a lot of things with firing there, but yeah. So right now we have 60 guys. I would say it fluctuates between busy season, 40 to 60 field guys. I have a 6-man team in the office. These are all full-time guys, salary, commission, things like that. So I have to constantly battle leadership from the guys in the office and me not overstepping and doing their job when I see mistakes. And then the guys in the field, which are guys who I'm trying to find new opportunities for, develop them, teach them accountability. So to start off with, one of my philosophies is competence equals confidence. So the more and more you keep doing, the more confident you get as a man, the more confident you get. And that's what led me to my success. So part of me is letting guys put them up a ladder of constant achievements. So therefore they're getting more confident. And sometimes I pay my guys well, but half the time with jobs, it's not even about the amount of money you're getting paid. It's about the meaning and responsibility and competence you feel, because then you feel proud in what you do. So creating that is a big one. And then for the guys in the office, I'm very good at, like, one of my best attributes is dealing with people and their emotions and like managing my team to learn how to talk to guys in the correct manner. Just because you're in charge as a leader does not mean someone should respect you. And I personally believe that a title doesn't hold authority. It's what you do is what gives you that authority. So there's some guys you can be more direct with. There's some guys you have to be more strategic with. The goal is to get them to do the outcome that's best for themselves and the company. And that may be wording it in a strategic way rather than just saying, you need to do this because I'm your boss. And it's a very simple default that managers have to just like, you need to do this because it's policy, rather than you need to do this and this is why, or explaining why so they comprehend what you're saying. That's a big one. And then that answer your question? I don't want to keep going on a rant.
Yeah, no, I mean it's okay. You can you can keep everything you're saying is super insightful. I'd ask because a lot of the employees, especially in moving specifically, are going to be younger guys, right? They need to have the physical prowess to do this job all day. And also, I think from the guys who are working in the office, they're also younger guys too. And so these are guys in the young 20s, they're coming out of university. A lot of them are hungry. A lot of them also won't have developed won't have worked in maybe a corporate space and have as much as responsibility. So what are you seeing from like a dealing with guys of that age? Maybe there's some egos involved about what the world is like. How do you go about tackling that?
So one, it's almost understanding everyone's different. So like when the team was 6 in the office, I have one guy who was high level military, who's such a rule follower that I have to be very careful in how I say things, and I have to teach him that it's okay to break rules, that not every rule needs to be followed. I have some guys that are extremely chill, and I have to teach them to be like, hey, you got to do something when you have time, maybe do something a little bit extra. I've also learned though, is as an owner, is just because I have this hungry attitude of always wanting to do more and improving, if someone's doing their job and at a bare minimum level, and that's what I'm asking them to do, I also can't get upset for someone doing just what is asked and not doing more. So when the ones that I see that are doing more, they're the ones that I create new opportunities for. I think a lot of business owners get upset when people don't think like them, but that's why you're the business owner and they're not, and that's perfectly fine. My goal is to create entrepreneurs for them, which is a concept of like, you're coming up with systems, you're running them by me, and we'll have an open discourse about it. And if it's a good system, it works. Like I have an open door policy with everyone in the company that I believe all my policies, all the policies we created are built off logic, and you can come in and debate it. And if I am wrong, I will easily admit I'm wrong and say, let's try that out actually. But I believe that every policy, just like when I'm in school, I used to sit there and like teachers would tell me, this doesn't make sense. Why would I do this? Like, why am I doing all this stuff? I'd want a company that's built off authenticity, that everyone can come in and debate if they have it. But typically once we have that conversation, they see why a system's in place and why we do things the way that we do them as well.
Mm. And what would you say for the employees that stand out in both the office or the ones in the field? What are the characteristics that you are looking out for and you're noticing about? Okay, this guy is he's got some drive. He looks like he wants to go places. What are those kind of things that you notice and can help
Yeah,
out?
gotten better about it. Where at first it was someone who was overly charismatic. I would think that they were great, but I've learned that sometimes people that are overly charismatic actually overcompensate for where they lack in other places. So just because someone's good with people, it actually does not mean that they are the guy that they want to be. They just talk a big game. So sometimes they talk a big game and they back it up. So there's that. There's some guys that are quiet who never complain, could work 12-hour days, want more, and it's easy to overlook them because they don't complain. They're never saying they need off. They're just working hard. So those are guys that I look at for as well. Basically, the biggest thing for me is when a problem arises, I ask this question on interviews because I want to understand people well. For example, if a customer wants you to do something that we're not supposed to do, but you know you could do it successfully, would you do it? And there's no right or wrong answer. 70% of people say I would call the office. Personally, I'd rather them do it because that's what I would do. I would like to know that you'll make a customer happy, even though we don't typically do it, and you know you can do it successfully, and you're not scared to step up and do something to make someone happy. And that's something I see in basically where guys will solve problems without even reaching out to us and do the right thing. Those are the people that want more. And sometimes it's just having a conversation of like, hey, are you happy? Do you want more work coming your way? But big leadership is the biggest thing that I look for, and then drive are pretty much the main two.
That's huge, right? That kind of solution oriented mindset and leadership. I think even I work in more in a corporate environment, but when people under me just do think, even if they did it wrong, but they try to try to do it and they're not always looking for a handout, it makes such a huge
100%.
difference. And so earlier you mentioned about you starting this out and working crazy hours, trying to figure all this thing out. I want to ask the question, is there such a thing as work-life balance, or do you think that is for people who are not driven?
I do not believe there's such thing as a work-life balance. I don't think there's a perfect system of 50-50. I believe some months work's going to take more, and then some months life's going to take more. For example, this next month, I'm going to London, I'm going to Tampa, I'm going to Mississippi, and I'm going to Asheville. It's going to be a lot of life this month. But that next month, it's probably as we go into busy season, I might be, hey, I can't do anything this month. I'm fully focused in here. So I think it's a constant fluctuation, ebb and flow, but it's never a perfect balance.
And how does as your businesses grow, you're opening new places, it's growing into Wilmington. How do you reset yourself as this goes? Is it always just more, more, more? Do you ever try and pull yourself back and kind of watch your growth? Where do you stand as things are evolving?
Yeah. So part of it is when my life gets too easy, I'm like, I need to make this challenging. So that's one. The second reason is it's starting to become not even a financial thing. I'm very well off financially with these companies, but I care so much about my team. So, for example, I only hire people up in the office space. A lot of moving companies will just hire corporate salespeople and bring them in. I will only hire people who've worked and put sweat equity and rise them up. I have 6 guys in there. My office at Dogwood, maybe I can get one a year, but there's so many guys that I care about that are like very competent that can handle office opportunities. So I opened up the Durham company, not really for myself, just because I had more guys that were hungry. So there, Wilmington is the same reason. I have a guy who wants to go in the office, but I can't bring him in now. I was like, hey, we can go do Wilmington. Are you down to move? He said, yeah. So that's the next thing. So more of it is giving these guys opportunities that they wouldn't necessarily had, or that they want me with them to help them. And I'm down for that challenge as well. And then, yeah, just mostly I feel like courage is doing stuff that it's not being scared. It's doing the stuff that you're scared to do and doing it anyways. And so when I catch myself comfortable, I'm like, what are you scared to do right now? More companies, more stuff. So I'm like, all right, then you need to do that.
I love that. So I want to get a bit more personal now
Mm-hmm.
because everything you do in this business, it's amazing. It's successful. It's like very inspiring, and I just want to know about you a little bit more.
Mm-hmm.
And essentially, like, so the people in your business and what kind of gets you out of bed, and how you kind of is this is this everything that you're always thinking about at the times, or how do you go about a general day for you? You're a very motivated person, so what other things in life are you putting your mind toward? Because I feel like if there's anything you put in your mind towards, it's going to be successful. So I just wonder how you go about your general day and your mental state.
No, first, thank you for those kind words. Saying anything I'll do is successful. That's very nice of you. But so my general day, I catch myself like I'm always driving from Raleigh, all different places. I don't usually listen to music. I either listen to like podcasts or information, or I'm just like brainstorming ideas. I will say my brain 60% of the day is focusing on the business, but more in just of like how can I improve, constantly evolving. So that's a big part of it. Um, Outside of this, I mean, I'm still going to the gym. I'm golfing, playing soccer. So I have like that whole side. So it always switches from personal stuff, but I've become friends with my office very much so to the point where we do quarterly golf tournaments during the summer. Two of my managers are big into golf. We just leave at 3 o'clock and golf. And then the one that doesn't, I'm just like, hey, I'm going to buy you lunch. I'm sorry you can't leave, but you just don't golf. So there's like, now it's starting to really, my life is mixed in with the business along with it also being business. So it doesn't feel like work. It's just my life at this point.
And how much are you learning through just the experience of running through the business as opposed to outside sources? Are there like books, or are you looking toward mentors in order to grow that next step, or does that come from just running the business on a day to day and kind of noticing gaps?
Yeah. I believe someone who owns a business, it's a reflection of them. So I think for the business to do well, I have to continually keep growing regardless. But I've read so many business books. I've read so much of that stuff. Maybe you get some nuggets out of it. Most of those books, you can get the concept in 20 pages and then it's just fluff. So I definitely went through this phase where I was just tired of all business books and everything. I feel like I'm hearing the same stuff. I am going to a conference for the first time in my life it's all moving company owners, and I'm trying to expand into storage. It's something I haven't done. So I'm going to learn from them. Part of me feels like I'm paying for motivational speakers, and I may leave this and be like, that was a waste of time. But I also have never done it, and I don't want to be naive to think that I know everything, because I know I don't. So I want to keep getting better. So I am in this weird spot right now in life where I've achieved so much, things are going so well in the company. I have to keep getting better. And how do I get better? And this networking event is what I'm trying. So I'm trying to network more with more individuals, because I do feel like I can learn more from individual experiences, like why you do this podcast, than reading a book.
I think that's huge. I think to me, one of the main reasons I do a podcast like this is because I don't really want to learn. Well, not I don't want to learn, but learning from a celebrity who's been successful, it's kind of, there's such a gap as to understanding what they've actually been through. Whereas you, for example, I know you. I've seen your progression and seen you at Queens when you were just playing soccer every day, going to the gym every day, and it's like, okay, now you can actually see that path. So it's super inspiring. So let's just talk about the future a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
You talked about some of the areas in which you're going into. You're saying you're starting a website company, the Wilmington area. Like, how do you look to the future? Do you plan in terms of 5 and 10 years, or is everything organic? How do you structure that?
I would say it's a mix of both. Where I want to be in 10 years, I don't know. Life has changed so much just from 1 year of opening the company to 2 years. So part of me is more just excited to see how things unfold. I'm like, where will I be in 10 years? But I do look more about like 6 months to a year plan. So at a small scale, launching storage, my goal is to learn that in the next month to 2 months, make a game plan, launch at the end of this quarter, going into the new year. It's a whole new side of the business. So that Wilmington, the goal is to get that up to like 3 trucks at the end of the year. Me being less hands off, the guy that's going there, me really mentoring him for him to step up and just use me when he needs me. So that's the goal there. After that, I might still want to open one every other year. We'll see. Then there is the website business, which I'm excited about because it's a whole different area. I know I can sell it and explain to people that are in my position how important branding is, because a lot of moving companies, for example, will display 2 strong guys in a truck. It's very aggressive branding. Like ours is Dogwood. It's a feminine logo. I think it works well in the masculine industry to have a feminine brand. And actually just caring, especially in service-based industries, about what our generation likes to see like a nice coffee shop, a brewing company, like their logos are nice. You want to do that. Why can't service based have that? And your website needs to be functional. Where if I go on a website to order pizza and I can't find order online, I'm probably going somewhere else. The same thing with your website. If you can't find the call, request an estimate sheet in 2 seconds, they're going to be out. So that's that side of the business. I'm excited about that. And then part of me wants to do like one other business that is completely different. And if I fail, I fail. But like golf simulator, coffee shop, a gym, just something where it's like, you know what, I'm okay to just lose all this money, but I want to just test myself in a different realm.
Right, exactly. I think, as I said, I think you're going into different areas, and I'm sure just the way your mind works, it works in a very solution based aspect, but also creative. I think marrying those two, I think a lot of people struggle with because they're either too creative and they can never actually get anything done, or they're so solution oriented that they don't allow themselves the grace to kind of flex. How is that balanced for you? Because I know you mentioned in college, very creative, and then you move into a space where, you know, it's about getting things done. It's about finding answers and progressing. So how's that evolved over the years for you in terms of finding a balance between that creativity?
Yeah, I would say it's kind of like a uh, work-life balance thing where sometimes it's like I just got to be direct, very intentional, and don't worry about creative. And then the creative, I feel like anyone who's a creative, you can't just have it. There's just moments where you're in it and you kind of get excited. It's like that flow state when you're playing the sport where you're just like, oh, I'm in that creative zone. And then all this energy comes and I don't need any of my coffee right now. I'm just in the momentum phase. So I would say the creative almost just comes as a surprise as I'm doing the other side of what you're talking about, being intentional and direct. And another thing you mentioned that kind of makes me think of how I think about things, where it's like answers are easy, but the difficult part is asking the right questions. And that's something that I try to think about as well.
I love that. And so we're going to wrap it up here. This has been point after point after point. I love it. So much insight. And everyone can go follow you, obviously, Dogwood Moving, based in the Triangle, but also expanding. I'll
Mm.
link everything in the show notes. And hopefully we'll do this again and see what the next business is in a year. I'm excited to see it. So I appreciate you, brother.
Of course. Thank you for having me.